The first Sino-Japanese War. Who was involved? Japan and China. What happened? Japan and China was engaged in a war because Japan wants to conquer Korea, for it's been called a dagger pointing at Japan's heart. Before any other Asian or Eastern countries does, and Japan wanted to end China's centuries-old sovereign rights over Korea to open Korea's coal and iron ore deposit for Japan's industrial use. When 1894 to 1895, small battles between them happened in Pengdu and the Bay of Asan during July, but the formal declaration of war would be the 1st of August 1984, where there are 3 stages of the war and each stage had a different location, both land and sea. On the first stage, they were battling at the northern city of Pyongyang and Yellow River. At second stage, with the defeat of China, they were battling at Manchuria and Yellow River. At the third stage, they were battling at Wei Highway and Yingkou. With the fall of Wei Highway, Japan pressed further into southern Manchuria and northern China and approaches to Beijing on March 9, 1895. In the end of 20th of March, Japan occupied Taiwan as well.
During the 1904, Russia and the Japanese have a war between them, and then in the Manchuria for a long time, and then after that, Korea and Japan becomes the first Asia country to defeat the European country after they defeat the Russia.
Japan annexes Korea after 3 years of fighting, becoming one of the world's leading power. So Japan occupied North Korea on August 22. Yan Wan-yong represent North Korea to sign a Japanese ROK major treaty with the Japanese. After that, in August 27, the North Korean Empire was destroyed.
In 1914, the United Kingdom made allies, and if it was able to take the German Pacific region, Japan would enter the war. The British government formally asked the Japanese side to help destroy the sea area of China and its nearby German Navy Empire attackers. Japan on August 23, 1914 sent the final pass to Germany that did not get a reply. Japan officially declared war on Germany as a result of the refusal of Vienna to withdraw from the Austrian-Hungarian Croatia. Catherine Elizabeth, Japan also launched a war against Austria in Hungary on August 25, 1940.
Extreme nationalism begins to take hold in Japan as world economic depression hits. The emphasis is on a preservation of traditional Japanese values and a rejection of Western influence. In 1920s, and there is talk about Japan the extreme nationalism is hold on the power of the Japan, and the idea of them is to keep on the traditional of Japanese volumes, and they will not trust the Western influence.
In the 1930s, China and USA put up tariffs against the Japanese goods, so their people bought local goods instead of Japanese goods. This put Japan's economy into crisis, leaving them with no money and resources to feed their people.
In
1930, Japan needed to prepare to fight against U.S. In the war, so the army leaders of Japan decided to help their country by building up the empire of Japan by force.
In September 1931, Japanese soldiers claimed that Chinese soldiers attacked the Manchurian Railway that was part of Korea.
In 1931, Japan took over Manchuria as a puppet state and gained coal, iron, and agricultural resources to support Japan's industrialization.
On 15 May 1932, Prime Minister Inukai Tsuyoshi of Japan was assassinated by 11 young Navy officers in his residence.
In 1933, China asked the West for help, but Japan argued that China was being crazy, so they had to invade Manchuria to start the help. The West thought about this for a long time.
In 1933, in Japan, the West decided that Japan was going against the rules. Japan stopped working with the West. So the West and China's relationship with Japan was at a low time.
In 1976, Japan signs alliance with Nazi Germany and is heaven in Japan. In 1937, Japan goes to the war with China, capturing Shanghai, Beijing, and Nanjing amid atrocities like the rape of Nanjing, in which up to 30,000 Chinese citizens were killed. Japan till this day has yet to admit the war crimes, which is a barrier to building trust between the countries.
In 1942, Japan occupied several countries, including the Philippines, Dutch East Indies, Burma, and Malaya. In June, at the Battle of Midway, the U.S. aircraft defeated the Japanese. This is when the U.S. began the strategy island hopping, cutting the support lines of Japanese.
In the year 1944, the U.S. forces are near enough to attack and start bombing the Japanese city. Of course, this happens in Japan, and there were U.S. armies and Japanese citizens involved. In shortly 48 seconds, many Japanese citizens were killed.
In 1945, 2 US planes dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They're both in Japan, making the emperor of the time surrender and relinquish all the good resources and divine statuses, and also making the military disbanded.
In 1951, Japan signs a peace treaty with the United States and other nations. To this day, there is still no peace treaty with Russia.
In 1952, Japan regains independence. U.S. retains several islands for military use, including Okinawa.
In 1972, Japanese Prime Minister visit China and normal diplomatic relations are resumed. And in the same year, Okinawa is returned to Japanese sovereignty, but U.S. retains bases there.
In 1993, Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Yohei Kono acknowledges the Japanese Army role in the forcible mobilization of so-called comfort women as sex slaves for the Japanese soldiers in China and Korea during World War II.